Congratulations on your Hall of Fame induction, Jerome, from all your friends at S&T Bank.
On this spring day in 2011.
You ready? Oh, good catch.
A young Jerome Bettis Jr. gets a lesson from his dad.
You can be physical, you can be tough, you can be strong.
A game that takes more than raw talent and skill.
I think you're ready to be a football player.
20 years earlier on the field of Notre Dame, Jerome Bettis showed he had all of that and more.
Over the middle, pass to Bettis, touchdown Notre Dame! Jerome Bettis had a touchdown! He is mobbed in the end zone!
Jerome Bettis, born February 16, 1972 in Detroit, Michigan, the Motor City and the birthplace of Hitsville and Motown, the same city that churned out fine cars and music superstars.
Jerome was just a little runt of a baby, but by the time he got to be a couple of months old, he just started exploding and he got to be a big boy.
The youngest of three, Jerome's dad worked 2 jobs as an electrical engineer for the city and as a teacher. A young Jerome Bettis dreamed of playing a professional sport, but the ball he had in mind, a bowling ball.
We were bowlers. So on the weekend, Saturday morning, we were up at the bowling alley for their leagues. They all had leagues. And Sunday mornings, we were up going to tournaments.
Tournaments in places like the Garden Bowl, the oldest bowling alley in the country.
I needed to keep their minds active, keep them busy, keep it constructive, and things like that. And it worked for us because it did keep them out of the street.
And football? Jerome didn't even start playing until he was 13. That's when his Uncle Leroy, his mom's brother, saw him with some neighborhood kids and said he can really play.
Bettis signed up for his high school team, the Mackenzie Stags. Coach Bob Dozier saw something in Bettis, so he took him in as a freshman to one of Reggie McKenzie's football camps.
It wasn't playground. When I meant to show him what it took, I mean, it was work.
Reggie McKenzie, a former NFL guard, held free football camps for high schoolers. McKenzie recalls how every year he challenged the kids, asking who would do what he did, who among them would be the next to make it to the pros.
And we breaking up, everybody's getting ready to leave, and I was walking away, and I got a tap on my shoulder, and it was him. And he looked up to me, because he's not real tall. And he looked up to me and he pointed to himself. He says, me, I'm going to be the one. I'm going to do it.
Football served as a counterbalance to the lure of Bettis's neighborhood, where there was always the choice of earning quick money. Bettis later admitted that he sold drugs for a time and ran with a bad crowd that called themselves the Aurora Boulevard Posse, named after the street they grew up on. Coach Dozier heard about it and paid a visit to Jerome's folks.
He came to my house. He said, Jerome is about to get himself in trouble in school. He said, and he's your $1 million baby, and I didn't believe him.
Jerome's mother, Gladys, sat him down and said, you're going to ruin your life. He then went from being the kid who played his first football game as a freshman to being the #1 player in the state of Michigan by his senior year. He averaged 15.7 tackles, rushed for 1,355 yards, and scored 14 touchdowns.
He was just innately talented, and I think Jerome's just one of those guys that didn't take many reps, didn't take many opportunities to get the plays. He just got it naturally.
Recruiting letters came pouring in from all around the country. Bettis chose Notre Dame because they promised him that he would carry the ball.
But when he got to Notre Dame, it was a whole team full of blue chip All-American. Everybody there was the man.
Under legendary coach Lou Holtz, Bettis began making a name for himself. Holtz took a hard line with Bettis, even singled him out when he thought he had more to give. It made Bettis even more determined.
He used to pound the crap out of Jerome, and it's like, bruh, when we talk about it, it's like, man, this cat, he's too much.
What many in the stands may not have realized is that Jerome was playing in these games with asthma.
He'd take a puff and, I'm ready to go, coach, I'm ready to go. And I would sit back and kind of marvel at that because, that takes a lot of toughness, mental toughness, as well as physical.
Then came the Sugar Bowl upset in Bettis' sophomore year. Florida was ranked number 3, Notre Dame 18.
You hear all the jokes, what's the difference between Notre Dame and Cheerios? Cheerios belong in a bowl.
By the game's end, Bettis had established himself as one of the country's best college fullbacks. 150 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns on consecutive plays, and the game's MVP. In 1993, the end of his junior year, Jerome Bettis was selected 10th in the first round of the NFL draft to play for the Los Angeles Rams.
That first year, I mean, he walked on that NFL stage like those guys were in second gear, and he was in first gear.
You couldn't have scripted a better start for the NFL. Bettis finished 1,429 yards, earned Rookie of the Year, and was selected to the Pro Bowl. Despite his personal successes, the Rams team was not doing well, and there was upheaval. The team was moving from LA to St. Louis. There was a coaching change, and Bettis, who was a 2-time Pro Bowler, wanted more money. That led to a falling out with his Rams coach.
Luckily for Jerome, there was a great little organization out there keeping an eye out on him.
The Steelers.
The greatest move of all was when Pittsburgh traded to get him, because he was a typical Pittsburgh, Frenchy Fruquois type running back, Franco Harris type running back.
Bettis found his home, and the Steelers fans were all too happy to bring back his old college nickname, the Bus.
I mean, he was, just a bigger, faster guy than most of the people he played with in his era.
The Steelers made it to the AFC Championship games in 1998 and 2002, but both times lost at home, just missing a chance to go to the Super Bowl. But in 2004, the Steelers signed a young rookie quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, Jerome ran me over. I don't think he knows it, though. I'm a little speed bump to Jerome. So.
But Bettis was getting older and his body not holding up the way it used to. Still, the Steelers were clicking, and it was back to the AFC Championship game against the Patriots in 2005. They lost 41-27. With that loss, Bettis saw his chance of a Super Bowl ring fading.
He really was thinking pretty hard about retiring the year before that, and Ben was the one that really kind of told him, let's take one more run at this.
The 2005 season was an up-and-down year. The Steelers were 7-5. The Bears came to town, a must-win for them to make the playoffs.
The field is a mess, it's muddy, and no traction, and Bears are up, maybe 10, 12 points, and we can't get the offense clicking.
Jerome Bettis is called in, and the result was this iconic moment. Bears linebacker versus Steelers running back. Brian Urlacher versus Jerome Bettis.
And that whole game was pretty special, really. It was one of those sort of, I think, turning point games in that year, and Jerome was, he was getting a little longer in the tooth at that point, and so for him to come out and have that kind of game against that team that was a special day.
The Steelers needed to win the next 4 games in a row just to make it to the postseason. And win they did, game after game. Then January 15th, 2006, the playoff game against the Indianapolis Colts. 80 seconds left. Pittsburgh is up 21-18. Jerome Bettis is called in to close the game and get the Steelers to the AFC Championship game.
You could see the Colts fans just leaving the stadium, head down, and they give the ball to Jerome, and I'm waving bye to them as they leave, and I just hear a friend of mine sit next to me and say, "No, he fumbled." And it was like slow motion, and everyone is shocked. Colts fans are shocked. Steeler fans are shocked. I know Jerome was shocked.
Jerome Bettis, who never fumbled, had fumbled. The Colts' Nick Harper came up with the ball, and it was Roethlisberger who tackled him. Now the Colts had a chance to tie the game with a field goal, but it sailed right.
I just kind of said to myself, oh, that must have been Mr. Rooney, the chief, blowing that cigar smoke and blowing that ball right, because he saved Jerome and he saved the Steelers' hopes and dreams.
From that point on, there was no stopping the Steelers. They defeated Denver in the AFC Championship, setting up the ultimate storybook ending for Bettis, a Super Bowl win in his hometown of Detroit.
06 was the biggest year for Jerome, and I mean, it took us to the highest that we could go, and by the end of the year, it just brought us down to the bottom. It just crushed us.
November 28, 2006, Jerome's father, Johnny Bettis, suffered a massive heart attack and died. Bettis' father didn't live long enough to see him enter the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but Gladys Bettis says it's like her husband is still here, cheering their son along.
I'm just thrilled. I mean, I am so happy, and I'm happy that I'm able to be here for him, to represent his dad and myself.
Passion, a work ethic, the intelligence, and a natural gift paved the way to Canton for the bus.
It could have turned out differently from a football perspective, but from a life perspective, I think Jerome would have been successful and been great at whatever he wanted to do, whatever he turned out to be.
Good day's work, right? Yeah?
Yeah.